Close protests during the national anthem by Colin Kaepernick have made their way to Indiana, with Indiana Fever players and others joining in, while Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay says he opposes it. Dwight Adams Indy star washed Indiana Attorney General Curtis Hill said on national TV that if NFL players are protesting Black Lives Lost, then they should bring awareness to violence that black people commit against other black people. In terms of protesting the issue of Black Lives Lost, Hill said, one of the most dramatically difficult things to fathom in this country is the amount of lives lost, Black lives lost, as a result of black and black violence. In the same year that we experienced about 259 police officer shootings of blacks in 2015, there were 6,000 black lives lost to murders from black people. Hill made the remark Saturday morning on Fox Friends on the Fox News channel. He was expounding on an opt he had recently sent out to news organizations. What they said: NFL owners are responding to Trump's comments about Colin Kaepernick and kneeling. Doyle Colts players explain why they are kneeling for the national anthem after his walkout. Here's what Mike Pence wants the NFL to do about players who kneel during anthem. While Hill, who is black, said he believes in the players' right to protest however they want, he questions their timing for doing it during the national anthem when the nation is already divided. If they are speaking out against the loss of black lives, he said they also should look at a larger issue that people often ignore: black and black violence. When we're talking about the issue of saving black lives, that's a dramatic issue that needs to be brought to the forefront, and this is an opportunity for the NFL to not just stand in silence over an issue that they think is important, but to rise up in unity and make sure that we're all aware of this important issue and do something about it, Hill said Saturday on the Fox show. Citing data he said came from the Washington Post, the Indiana Attorney General said 259 black people were killed by police in 2015, and he compares that to an estimated 6,000 blacks who died as a result of black and black crime. Hill, a former prosecutor, also said the vast majority of police shootings resulting in death are justified, although he said officers should be prosecuted if such shootings are found to be unjustified. I was a former prosecutor for a number of years, and I can tell you that the vast majority of police shootings resulting in death, whether it's a black victim or a white victim, are typically determined to be justified shootings. In other words, they are typically situations that involve some measure of criminal activity or violent activity, Hill said. In the rare instance where a police action is unjustified, then we absolutely have to take action where it's warranted. Police have to be held accountable and arrested and prosecuted for murder, if warranted. The practice of players in the NFL, and now in other sports both professional and amateur, kneeling during the playing of the national anthem has stirred a controversy, since former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick began doing so last season. While players say they're protesting police violence against blacks and racial injustice, others have begun saying that their message has become muddled as more people object to what they see as an insult to the nation's anthem, flag and military. President Donald Trump also has weighed in, saying on Twitter that the practice of players kneeling during the national anthem was unpatriotic and saying that NFL owners should fire them if they do that. And Vice President Mike Pence recently walked out of an Indianapolis Colts home game against the San Francisco 49ers, after some players kneeled during the playing of the anthem. Hill also addressed that issue on the Fox show. When this controversy began, the concern that was voiced by NFL players was the issue of black lives being lost to police gunfire, Hill said on Fox Friends. And that certainly is a critical situation that we need to address, but in the course of the last season, it's questionable as to whether the protests are about the police brutality, racism, or are they just upset that the president is upset with them. And I think the concern has become muddled as I've looked at it. But Hill also made it clear that citizens should stand up against violence of any type. I don't want to suggest that only black and black violence is an issue in this country. It's not. We need to abhor all violence, he said Saturday. Close Tommy Smith and John Carlos made history in October 1968 with their iconic bowed heads and raised fists during the national anthem. Video provided by Newsy News. Look, here is the full text of Hill's opt sent to news organizations. Whether justified or not, loss of life caused by a police shooting is traumatic for the community. Given the legacy of racial injustice in America, that trauma is magnified greatly when the person killed by the police is black. The lives of black men and women do indeed matter, and NFL athletes have every right to protest the tragic loss of any life, including black lives. These players recognize that their NFL celebrity status affords them a unique platform to call attention to matters of importance and perhaps even a responsibility to speak out, and now that the world is watching, the NFL has an opportunity to speak out, in great force, on a tragedy of unspeakable proportion, the senseless loss of young black lives to black and black violence. While it is true that each year a number of blacks die as a result of being shot or otherwise killed by the police, that number is but a fraction of the number of black people murdered by black people. In 2015, 259 blacks were killed by police, according to data collected by The Washington Post. Even if we were to presume that all 259 police shootings were unjustified, that number is dwarfed by the estimated 6,000 black lives senselessly murdered by other blacks. We live in a nation where blacks make up approximately 13% of the population and yet account for more than half of the murders. Shockingly, 90% of those victims are murdered by other blacks. Something is terribly wrong. Black and black youth gun violence is costing thousands of lives a year. Generations are being wiped out. Witnesses of these murders frequently are unwilling to cooperate with police, allowing many murderers to get away with it, meaning no justice for that life lost. To be sure, in the rare instance in which the police officer's actions are unjustified, that officer should account for his conduct, including arrest and prosecution for murder whenever warranted by the evidence. Even one unjust shooting is one too many. But contrary to the tone of many protests concerning police shootings, not every police shooting is unjust. In fact, the overwhelming majority are proven to be a reasonable use of force, often connected with violent criminal behavior. Yet none of the 6,000 murders of young black people was justifiable. None. Every single death was preventable. Every single murder demands justice. The killing must stop. And the NFL's opportunity violence is a constant threat, and blacks are being murdered at alarming rates in cities all over this nation, including cities that host NFL franchises. These NFL franchises and athletes can magnify the urgency of this tragic loss of life. Their actions on the field and off can unite them as men of influence who stand for justice. Rather than kneeling in silence, they should choose to stand as men of character and courage and tackle black and black violence. How many more young black men will die at the hand of another black man between the final whistle of last Sunday's game and next Sunday's kickoff? This tragedy deserves the attention of every American. NFL players may be just the right men to start this protest and stand up against black and black violence and give voice to a movement whose time has come in order to save the lives of young black men. CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. NFL Commissioner Everyone Should Stand 025 NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell made a statement to the media saying, "We believe everyone should stand for the national anthem." USATODAY 1 of 32 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Long before NFL players started kneeling, Olympians raised a fist. 129 Tommy Smith and John Carlos made history in October 1968 with their iconic bowed heads and raised fists during the national anthem. Video provided by Newsy News. Look 2 of 32 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Could this be a historic moment for the NFL? 321 Roger Goodell, NFL owners, and players met for 2 days in New York to discuss how to get from protest to progress. USA Today Sports. 3 of 32 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests report Colin Kaepernick files grievance against NFL owners for collusion. 042 Free agent quarterback Colin Kaepernick is pursuing a collusion grievance against the NFL under the CBA, according to Jason LeCanfer of CBS Sports and Mike Freeman of Bleacher Report. Time. Sports. 4 of 32 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Trump slams NFL decision to allow players to continue kneeling. 059 President Trump slammed the NFL's decision to keep allowing players to kneel during the national anthem. Buzz. 605 of 32 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Progress made at NFL owners meeting. 322 Sports Pulse. Trustic Crick checks in with NFL insider Lorenzo Reyes at the NFL owners meeting to discuss the progress players and owners are making for social justice reform. USA Today Sports. 6 of 32 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Roger Goodell is trying to toe a very careful line with anthem. Memo 213 The MMQB's Robert Klemko reacts to Roger Goodell's call to NFL players to stand for the national anthem and breaks down the association between the league and President Donald Trump. Time. 7 of 32 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Protesters gather outside NFL meeting about anthem. 042 Protesters gathered outside of a meeting between the NFL's owners, players and union leaders to discuss the national anthem protests. Time. Sports. 8 of 32 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. What does Kaepernick's collusion case really mean? 109 Colin Kaepernick has filed a collusion grievance against NFL owners, and will have to prove at last 14 teams have conspired to keep him out of the league. USA Today Sports 9 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Dana White: "You couldn't pay me to be NFL Commissioner." 139 UFC Commissioner Dana White shares thoughts on the NFL anthem demonstrations and whether he would play the national anthem before UFC events if President Donald Trump requested it. Time: Sports 10 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Penguins coach: "We respect the right to protest." 106 Mike Sullivan, the coach of the Stanley Cup winning Pittsburgh Penguins, insisted his team's visit to the White House Tuesday was not political, adding that he wouldn't mind if one of his players took a knee during the national anthem. October 10 AP 11 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Impressions of Roger Goodell's letter to teams on national anthem protests. 212 in Empty the Notebook, the MMQB's Albert Breer discusses the meaning behind Roger Goodell's letter to NFL teams in regards to the national anthem protests by players around the league. Time: Sports 12 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Al Sharpton accuses Jerry Jones of plantation mentality. 047 Rev. Al Sharpton explains why Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones' decision to make players stand for the national anthem smacks of a plantation mentality. USA Today Sports 13 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Trump: "About time NFL is demanding players stand for anthem." 050 President Donald Trump continued his almost daily social media commentary on the National Football League and the issue of player protests, implying that NFL commissioner is demanding that players stand for the anthem. Time: 14 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Do NFL players who protest have legal recourse if they are benched? 228 SI legal analyst Michael McCann gives his thoughts on Jerry Jones' national anthem ultimatum and shares whether NFL players could take legal action if they are benched for protesting during the anthem. Time: Sports 15 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Vice President Mike Pence leaves Colts game due to national anthem protests. 034 Vice President Mike Pence left Sunday's Colts 49ers game after roughly 20 players knelt during the national anthem on the 49ers sideline. Time: Sports 16 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Fewer NFL players protesting, but their message is now more focused. 303 The Nation sports editor Dave Zirin believes that public opinion on NFL player protests are shifting. Time: 17 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Adam Silver wades into dangerous territory with anthem protest stance. 234 The Nation sports editor Dave Zirin wonders if Adam Silver will punish NBA players if they decide to protest during the national anthem. Time: Sports 18 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's advice to NBA players: "Do not use anger to get your point across." 153 Basketball Hall of Famer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar reacts to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver's comments on athlete protests during the national anthem and shares what players should do in response. Time: Sports 19 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Lions owner Martha Ford asked players not to kneel for anthem. 040 Lions owner Martha Ford asked her players not to kneel during the national anthem before the team's game against the Vikings on Sunday. In exchange for not kneeling, Ford told players she would donate money to causes they care about in the community. Time: 20 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Marshawn Lynch wears "Everybody vs. Trump" t-shirt, sits during anthem. 022 Oakland Raiders running back Marshawn Lynch wore a "Everybody vs. Trump" t-shirt prior to Sunday's game against the Broncos, and sat during the national anthem. Time: Sports 21 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. 3 Miami Dolphins players defy Trump order to stand during anthem. 024 Kneeling national anthem protest continues in London as the Miami Dolphins play the New Orleans Saints. Video provided by Reuters News. Look 22 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. NFL want disciplined teams that skipped anthem. 101 The 3 NFL teams that chose to stay in the locker room and did not participate in the national anthem will not be disciplined, a league spokesman said. Time: 23 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. National anthem takes center stage across the NFL. 056 After President Trump said players who kneel during the anthem should lose their jobs, over 200 players and several owners demonstrated in various ways Sunday. Time: Sports 24 of 3-2 CLOSE NFL and other sports anthem protests. Multiple Patriots players kneel during national anthem. 148 A large group of Patriots players, including cornerbacks Malcolm Butler and Stephen Gilmore, knelt during the national anthem prior to Sunday's game against the Texans. Tom Brady was seen locking arms with teammate Philip Dorsett. Time 25 of 3-2 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. NFL's Paul Tagliabue calls Trump remarks insulting and disgraceful. 029 Former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue calls Donald Trump's comments on NFL protests insulting and disgraceful. Time 26 of 3-2 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Group of Saints players sit during national anthem. 120 Several members of the New Orleans Saints did not stand during the national anthem prior to Sunday's game against the Panthers. Time, Sports 27 of 3-2 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Jaguars owner reacts to Donald Trump's comments. Anthem protests. 058 Jaguars owner Shad Khan, a one-time Trump supporter, responds to Trump's comments and his team protesting during the national anthem. Time 28 of 3-2 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Stevie Wonder takes both knees to support America. 038 Music legend Stevie Wonder bent both knees while on stage Saturday at Global Citizen Festival in New York. 29 of 3-2 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Trump comments on protests spur response from Football World. 124 After Donald Trump said NFL players should be fired for kneeling during the national anthem, NFL players, owners and coaches condemned Trump's comments. USA Today Sports 30 of 3-2 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. NFL players react to Trump's comments on anthem protests. 110 The NFL world reacted to President Trump's comments about players protesting the national anthem. Time 31 of 3-2 CLOS NFL and other sports anthem protests. Trump get that sono fab off the field. 040 While in Huntsville, Alabama, President Trump said, "Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that sono fab off the field right now, out. He's fired." USA Today 32 of 32 Last video Next video NFL Commissioner Everyone should stand long before NFL players started kneeling. Olympians raised a fist. Could this be a historic moment for the NFL? Report Colin Kaepernick files grievance against NFL owners for collusion. Trump slams NFL decision to allow players to continue kneeling. Progress made at NFL owners meeting. Roger Goodell is trying to toe a very careful line with anthem. Memo protesters gather outside NFL meeting about anthem. What does Kaepernick's collusion case really mean? Dana White, you couldn't pay me to be NFL commissioner. Penguins coach, we respect the right to protest. Impressions of Roger Goodell's letter to teams on national anthem protests. Al Sharpton accuses Jerry Jones of plantation mentality. Trump about time NFL is demanding players stand for anthem. Do NFL players who protest have legal recourse if they are benched? Vice President Mike Pence leaves Colts game due to national anthem protests. Fewer NFL players protesting, but their message is now more focused. Adam Silver wades into dangerous territory with anthem protests. Stance Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's advice to NBA players: do not use anger to get your point across. Lions owner Martha Ford asked players not to kneel for anthem. Marshawn Lynch wears everybody vs. Trump t-shirt, sits during anthem. 3 Miami Dolphins players defy Trump order to stand during anthem. NFL want discipline. Teams that skipped anthem. National anthem take center stage across the NFL. Multiple Patriots players kneel during national anthem. NFL's Paul Tagliabue calls Trump remarks insulting and disgraceful. Group of Saints players sit during national anthem. Jaguars owner reacts to Donald Trump's comments. Anthem protests. Stevie Wonder takes both knees to support America. Trump comments on protests spur response from Football World. NFL players react to Trump's comments on anthem protests. Trump get that sono fab off the field. Call Indy Star reporter Domenica Bongiovanni at 317-444-7339. Follow her on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Read or share this story. http://indy.st2gadya